Welcome to Plant-Based on Fire, the podcast that ignites your passion for plant-based businesses. Real Men Eat Plants is proud to host this show, where we shine a spotlight on the latest and greatest plant-based companies making waves in the industry. From startups to established brands, we'll explore what sets these businesses apart, what challenges they've faced, and what their vision for a more sustainable and ethical food future looks like. So if you're hungry for some fresh insights, inspiring stories, and a healthy dose of entrepreneurial spirit, then join us on Plant-Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plant-Based on Fire. I'm your host, Bryan, where we are going to continue talking about plant-based businesses and their inspiring stories to thrive in the industry. I have an amazing guest joining us today. It's Glenn Tickle, and
Hello.
Glenn is a comedian. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I got a little bit of research on you, and I've been following you on TikTok and a few other channels. So you're based in New Jersey, right?
Correct. Yeah. A lot of people think Pennsylvania for some reason, but New Jersey my entire life.
Nice. And you've been on Dry Bar Comedy, the Travel Channel, Cozy TV, and even SiriusXM, right?
Yes. Do you get Cozy TV? That's the one that people don't usually know.
I get it, but I know I'm a streaming nerd kind of a thing. Yeah. So, but yeah,
they did a contest years ago that I won, and it's like if listeners aren't familiar with it, they show like Andy Griffith reruns all day, and then I won this contest, so they filmed a set of mine at a comedy festival. So it would be like, here's an Andy Griffith rerun. Here's this guy telling jokes for 20 minutes. We're not going to explain why. And then another Andy Griffith rerun. And a friend of mine was working there at the time. He's like, we would get so many emails from people about your set. I'm like, were they saying nice things? He's like, they were mostly confused why it was happening. I'm like, yeah.
That's funny.
I also was confused.
Well, you have millions of views on TikTok, and my favorite fact that I looked up is you're a competitive Mario player. So which Mario? Break it down.
Dr. Mario, specifically.
Okay. All right,
so,
Dr. Mario.
Yeah, if you don't, it came out a long time ago. It's the one that people compare to Tetris, yeah, where you're dropping pills down on viruses. It is just a thing I'm randomly very good at, and it's not a skill that's ever translated. It doesn't come up in my day-to-day life where my ability to stack pills by color impacts my day-to-day, which is a shame because I'm really quite good at it.
And there isn't a Dr. Mario competition worldwide where you can clear out $100,000 or
I forget. There is one with prize money. It's not a lot. It was maybe I think $500 if I won. I've competed in it twice and qualified for the final rounds.
Nice.
Or not the finals. It was you play to qualify. I'm not a sports guy, so I don't know the terms of how tournaments work. You play a couple people early in the day, and then the best people from that get put in the bracket to compete, and I've been in that bracket twice. I didn't get to do it. I was going to do it again last year, and I didn't get the chance. So hopefully this year.
Awesome. Well, so tell us a little bit about your background, your journey here, and how did you stumble into the plant-based lifestyle?
Sure. In high school, I read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and thought it was gross and then didn't want to eat meat anymore. But I went to high school in the late 90s, so it was harder if you are, 14, have no income or ability to get to the store yourself. To really do a big lifestyle change. So I did go back after a while, just kind of out of not really knowing how to keep feeding myself as slightly older than a child. Because I'm one of 5 kids. We didn't have a ton of money growing up, and I didn't feel I was never the kind of kid who's going to present my parents with a grocery list and be like, you need to purchase these items for me. It was just, I try to keep my head down. Whatever's around, I'll try to make the best out of. And then it was around the time my older daughter was born 10 years ago where at that point I wasn't eating a lot of meat anyway, and it's like, well, let's just see how long I can go without eating any of it. And it's been over a decade, and it's easier now. Like there's so many more options.
Yeah.
I have friends who will be vegan at home, and then when they're touring around, friends who are comedians specifically, they're like they'll be a vegetarian on the road just because like sometimes you're in a remote town in Nebraska and there's not a ton of choices for you, so they'll be a little more flexible.
I agree. I mean, I think that's the best path. I mean, do it where you can, but the corporate world and the travel world has not caught up to us yet. But hopefully we'll continue to be the advocates of change there. So tie it together for me. How did you get into the comedy side of things? What inspired your career there?
Sure. I went to school for film because I wanted to write and direct, and I made a movie my last year of college, which is really hard. It's a lot of work to write a script, get a crew together, film it, edit it, get it in festivals. Like it can be years before you find out if an audience likes your idea. With stand-up, it's like immediate, and that's hard to beat. So when I couldn't get hired to like write or direct things, I noticed, well, I'm like, stand-ups are getting hired for these jobs that I want. I don't mind standing in front of people and talking, and all my movies were comedies. So I'm like, I know how jokes work. Like I'll just go do that until I get a writing job. And it worked. I mean, I did eventually get writing jobs, but also I'm like, well, this is actually better, I think. Like this is... Yeah, it's I say easier, but I think I just mean for me specifically. I don't know that one's necessarily objectively easier than the other. They're both they both have challenges, but yeah, just standing there. I don't have like equipment to pack. I don't need to coordinate 20 people's schedules for a weekend. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things, like I always aspired to like have the boldness to get up on stage and stuff and do that. So I'm envious of you on that. You've sent me a couple of videos, and then I've definitely saw a couple of yours on TikTok and stuff. Yeah. I love how you just interweave some of the plant-based stuff into your routine and stuff. What's been how have you developed that content, I guess, and how has the audience responded to it? I love it.
I do. There's a joke on my Dry Bar special where I talk about how I don't eat meat, and that upset a lady at a barbecue. And it was I've heard it in comments on like social media if I talk about it, or other accounts that I follow. They'll you get the same probably 5 to 10 comments where they're like, oh, well, if you don't eat meat, why do you want to eat something that looks like meat? I'm like, meat doesn't look like hamburgers. Like, meat's not a cylinder. That's not how it comes. Like, this is, your whole argument is based on nothing. But it's also, that was the first joke I think I did where I talked about how I don't eat meat. And I noticed if I do it in New York or, here in Jersey, it usually doesn't get that big of a reaction. I mean, people laugh at it. It's a great joke. But I mean, like, nobody really pushes back on the idea that I don't eat meat. But then I went out to Nebraska years ago for, like, my first Midwest shows, and I did that joke, and, like, immediately, they turned on me. Like, they were mad just at the idea that I didn't eat meat. And so for a while, it's like, all right, well, I guess I won't do this joke in the Midwest. But then I started thinking of other jokes where I talk about it. I did it on Dry Bar because that platform, the only thing they care about is that it is clean. Like that's the goal for the entire platform. So I had to like look at all the material I had. I'm like, all right, what's the absolute cleanest stuff I had? That was on there. And you can kind of hear it on the recording. Like some people kind of push back a little bit. But Dry Bar also releases like compilations sometimes. So they did one where it was people making jokes about vegetarians, and they included my joke about being a vegetarian, but all the other comics were like, don't you guys hate vegetarians? And they titled it The Real Reason People Don't Like Vegetarians. And I'm like, are you saying it's me? Because it feels like, the way you cut this together, it feels like you're saying I'm the reason And I'm like, I always
Yeah.
try to make the point. I'm like, I'm not pushy about it. I'm not here to try to convert anybody. It is just like anything else I talk about in comedy. I'm like, this is my lived experience. And as a result of that, a thing happened that I think is interesting. So I'm going to tell you about that thing. I think I say the line
And
on the
make you
Dry Bar
laugh,
special. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to give you pamphlets after the show. This is just one of many stories I'm going to tell. We'll move on if you don't like it. But then it kind of felt like a fun challenge of, I was doing a show in Wisconsin a couple months ago, and it's like, I'm going to do a lot of jokes about this in Wisconsin. I want to see like if I can get them on board.
Push the envelope. Yeah.
Because I usually work clean, not out of like a moral stance. It is just like, as a guy who gets asked to work a lot of corporate and college shows where they ask me to work clean, it's like, well, I don't want to write two sets. Like, I don't want to have the dirty set and a clean. I'd rather just write jokes that I can do pretty much anywhere, and those happen to be clean. And the ones where it's like, yeah, the most controversial thing I tend to bring up is that I don't eat meat. That's like the thing that gets the biggest reaction out of people. And it's like, well, let me see if I can make this work in the Midwest. Like, I want to make these people laugh at, me drinking oat milk or whatever, and not in like a mean way. I'm not going to be the butt of the joke at them laughing. I don't want them laughing at me. I want them laughing with me, kind of thing. So on the news, I think I sent you a clip from my new special coming out where I talked about the vegan deli that was in my town. But there's more where I talk about how I found out I'm lactose intolerant. So I'm just kind of by default now like one step closer to just being vegan. Because cheese upsets my tummy, and it's like, all right, well, I had a guy, I went to buy oat milk one day, and this guy, I feel like I look like this guy saw me coming, and he's like, this guy will love this, and he like complained about all the plant milks in the aisle, like I was gonna be like, oh yeah, ha ha ha, but that's what I was there to buy. So I was like, no, and I just grabbed my oat milk and walked away after yelling at him. And yeah, I'm like, I feel like most of the people coming to see me if I'm doing a show in Kansas City or something would probably agree with that guy over me, but I'm the one they're there to see. So I'm like, can I get them on my side enough to laugh at this? Not necessarily like they're going to give up dairy and start drinking oat milk, but it also it's been weird, like I said, doing it in different places and seeing how they react, because sometimes people get genuinely angry.
They do. It's such a, and that's where I just have so many questions for you. Like, how are you handling that? I mean, there's stereotypes, misconceptions. People are just not educated, and like, I think you can make a killing by just hitting the Veg Fest circuit across America. I mean, 12% of us in the United States are plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, whatever that norm is that we're driving towards. Like, if you just get the word out, I bet you could jam-pack every place you go to or to.
I'm on board.
By just hitting the Facebook group for that city and just saying, look, there's like, it's such a rare thing to come across somebody who's plant-based and is going to hit some comedy things. I think you're hitting a niche.
I don't want to introduce like too much competition, but there's a couple like particularly vegan comedians. Like Mike Kaplan is a comedian I've worked with, and around the time I stopped eating meat, I was working with him, and he's been vegan for I don't know how long. But I was asking him, like, how do you like find food on the road? And he's like, most places will steam a carrot for you if you ask. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But I mean, the real answer is you go to a grocery store instead of a restaurant. Like that's
right.
If there's any other plant-based curious traveling comedians, you just go to the grocery store, get some stuff for the hotel room. That's usually what I do.
That's right. I hit Chipotle usually. So what's the so are you gonna like the other thing that I'm thinking is like, when are you gonna just get the 10 vegan comedians all together and hit the circuit?
We'll just go on tour.
The vegan tour, yeah.
I would be down, because the one like Mike and some of the other ones that I know like are some of my favorite comics to watch. I'm blanking on his name. I didn't know about him very long. I heard him on the Vegan Hacks podcast a couple weeks ago. And he is like he's sort of similar to like what I said of like, oh, can I get audiences to laugh at this, whether they agree with me or not? he is like actively talking about being a vegan with that kind of goal in mind. And I'm blanking on his name, so I apologize to this young
No,
man
that's
in
okay.
Los Angeles.
You made me. I'm just trying to think of like how, to your point, like how do you not polarize it? Because it is such a a challenging topic for most people to have a discussion around. But like, where is that like George Carlin or Robin Williams like rant that you can just go off on and convince people to do it in a comedy, funny kind of way? Like, I don't know. There's lots to unpack there.
I mean, I wish I could remember this guy's name, but he was talking about, he's like, he wants to do that. He wants to like kind of use comedy in like an evangelical way for the plant-based lifestyle. I'm like, more power to you. I don't want to do that. Like I don't, I'm teaching a stand-up class right now. And one of the things that I was talking about this past week was how like you can absolutely use comedy to get a message across. But I think when that's the goal, I think the comedy is like a little worse. I think
I agree.
If you start out with your main goal of I'm going to make a point, then you can do that while making jokes, absolutely. But if your main goal is I want to make a joke, I want these people to laugh, and your point of view can come across, and you can absolutely still use that and make a point. I don't bring up politics a lot on stage, mainly because like as a guy who travels around, I'm frequently performing for people who probably vehemently disagree with me on a lot of political matters. So I always look at it as like, well, I'm being invited to this place by these people to do this show. If they invited me to dinner, I wouldn't like kick the door in and be like, hey, who'd you idiots vote for? And let me tell you why you're wrong.
Right.
Like it just seems rude.
Yeah.
So I want people to have a good time is like the basics of it all.
Like everything in life, it's getting more and more specialized, right? Like Trevor Noah, Jon Stewart can do that political. They have the following and the drive to
because people will
interweave
go
the
see them
comedy with the
specifically.
news.
Like people are going to go see
exactly.
Jon Stewart because they know and like Jon Stewart. Kind of where I'm at in my career is people are going to go see me because there's a comedian in town, or like I said, frequently because they're at a work thing and their boss thought it would be a good idea to bring me in. So they're not starting on my side necessarily. And I don't want to agitate anybody. I mean, online, like if you follow me on social media, like I'm political there because if you're coming to my social media pages, you've made that choice. Like you're free to come and go as you want. But with this, it's like, well, I don't eat meat, and I don't eat meat for reasons, and I want to talk about my life.
That's right.
My comedy is mostly about my kids because they're a huge part of my life. Obviously, I spend most of my day taking care of them. I'm around them more than anybody else, and then the like other big parts of my life, that's what I want to talk about on stage. But the same way, like when I talk about my kids, I'm not there to convince people to have kids. It is just, here's a fact of my life that I'm going to talk about. I have kids and they're weird. And just like, a fact of my life is I don't eat meat. And, when I travel around the country, sometimes that causes weird reactions from people that I think are funny to bring up. But it is usually, it's like I have to start it by saying I don't eat meat. And that is the part that people just shut down sometimes. And then it's, well, I'm going to win them back because I know these jokes are pretty good. And it's I don't think I've ever said I don't eat meat and you shouldn't either, even though like I think that like you should probably
you do have to get them, but you do plant that seed, so that's where I'm so glad you came on the Plant-Based on Fire. So I hope everybody who's listening takes a minute to share this episode out and make sure everybody knows Glenn Tickle's name in our community here, and you all go and support him as he's traveling across the United States. So I guess, what kind of impact do you hope to have through your comedy and advocating a little bit here and there where you can for the plant-based life?
I mean, I like. Hang on.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, a train was going by and I have ADD and it derailed. Hit me with that question one more time. I'm sorry.
I guess what kind of impact are you hoping to have? Like, I know you don't like point it out, like you shouldn't eat meat kind of a thing, but I do think there's that little absurdities of things, like you're
Yeah.
killing the animals or just those little, there's so many jokes I think us plant-basers have internally that we point out to our friends and family when they ask us the silly protein question.
Yeah.
So,
I think in terms of impact, I think it is helpful. Like maybe there's young people out there who like comedy and are kind of on the fence about whether they want to stop eating meat or whatever. And then if they see their buddy Glenn on on the internet, making jokes about how he doesn't eat meat, and then they're more comfortable with it. Like I have, queer friends who talk about it on stage kind of with the same intent. They're like, I'm not trying to make anyone queer. It's just if a young person sees me just existing in the world, then it like shows them that it's okay. And
right.
I guess, I mean, I understand that it's two different things, but if, people see, oh yeah, like you can not eat meat for a decade and still be pretty well overweight, and like I'm not struggling for protein. I'm thriving as much
right.
as I'm gonna. And I think
that's right.
Because there are people who genuinely think like, oh yeah, no, you need to eat meat or you'll die. you won't actually. It's fine. You can get by on chickpeas with like pretty much little else for a good couple of days there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's surprising to people when you say a good majority of the planet doesn't eat meat too, and they don't realize that. So,
Yeah.
Glenn, it has just been so fun to get to know you a little bit more here and
You
help
as well.
unpack
Thank you for
your
having me.
comedy business. What collaborations and stuff do you have coming up, and how do people reach you and get in touch and figure out where they can see you in person?
Yeah, I'm just at Glenn Tickle, Glenn with one N, the correct way, as I'm sure Merzer will tell you, on whatever social media platforms. I just joined Blue Sky, if you're familiar with that one. I'm on there
that's
now
a new one.
at Glenn Tickle.
Okay.
TikTok is the one I probably use the most. And I have a new special coming out later this year on my YouTube channel called Glenn Tickle Against the World Crime League, which will be out August or September, I think. I don't have a date yet, but probably
cool.
will by the time this comes out. It might actually be out by the time this comes out. We'll see.
That is awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing how we can help support you and help grow your budding comedy business for sure. And hopefully we'll get to see you on Saturday Night Live or some even bigger, cooler thing in the future here, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What else can we do as a community to help you? Is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, if you want to help me,
subscribe to your YouTube
I was gonna
channel.
say, if you want to specifically help me, you can go to my YouTube channel because I'm releasing the new special there in an attempt to grow that. So if people want to head to Glenn Tickle over on YouTube. And you can watch my Dry Bar specials there. There's a poorly shot video of my first album recording. There's content you can enjoy.
Awesome. So download that, put it on your phones, people. Thank you so much, Glenn, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
That is really all the time we have for Plant Based on Fire today. And thanks again, Glenn, for sharing some of your insights and experiences with us. Until next time, everyone, keep that fire burning.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Plant Based on Fire. We hope you enjoyed learning about the innovative plant-based businesses we featured today and got inspired to support them on their journey. Remember, plant-based eating isn't just a trend. It's a way of life that benefits your health, the environment, and animals. By choosing plant-based foods, you're making a positive impact on the world and helping to create a better and more compassionate future. If you want to join the Real Men Eat Plants community and get even more resources to help you go and stay plant-based, check out our blog, podcasts, and 30-day challenge at realmeneatplants.com. Thank you for tuning in to Plant Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us a review, and let us know what you think of this episode. Don't forget to tag us at Plant Based on Fire when you share this episode in your preferred social media. Wish to be a guest? We need to know about your plant-based business. Email us at pbof@realmeneatplants.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thank you to our guests and to you, our listeners, for your support. And see you next time.